Have you ever wondered how a tiny grain of salt can transform the taste of an entire dish? This simple yet profound thought is the beginning of our exploration today. We're here to delve into the depths of the parable of the salt crystal, a fascinating Buddhist teaching that presents an enlightening perspective on life. This parable, like the salt in our analogy, may seem diminutive, but its implications are vast and transformative. It uses the humble salt crystal as a metaphor to illustrate a powerful concept. Just as the grain of salt can alter the flavor of a dish, so too can our perspective shift the essence of our experiences. The parable of the salt crystal is a lesson, a reminder that context is crucial. It tells us that our experiences, our joys and sorrows, are not absolute, but rather, they are shaped by the lens through which we view them. A pinch of salt in a large pot of soup merely enhances the flavor, making it more enjoyable. But the same pinch in a spoonful of soup, it becomes overpoweringly salty, virtually inedible. This is the core teaching of the parable, the importance of perspective. The size of the soup pot, in a way, represents the breadth of our perspective, the vastness of our understanding. The larger the pot, the less the salt affects the overall taste. Similarly, the broader our perspective, the less we are swayed by individual experiences or challenges. They become not overpowering but merely a part of the larger picture. Understanding this parable is akin to adding a new ingredient to our mental and spiritual cuisine. It provides us with a tool, a method of adjusting the flavor of our life experience. It encourages us to expand our perspective, to increase the size of our pot, making the inevitable pinches of salt in life more palatable. Just as a grain of salt can change the flavor of a dish, our perspective can significantly alter our life experiences. As we delve deeper into this parable, may we all find the wisdom to adjust our seasoning and savor the many flavors life has to offer. What can a tiny grain of salt teach us about life and perspective, you may wonder? Well, let's dive into the parable of the salt crystal to unearth its profound wisdom. Picture this. A man takes a small crystal of salt and dissolves it in a glass of water. He takes a sip and grimaces. The water is unbearably salty. Now the same man takes a similar crystal of salt and throws it into a river. He fills a glass with the river water and drinks. The water is fresh, pure, and perfectly drinkable. The salt, once so overpowering, has become insignificant. This parable, at its core, is a metaphor for life's challenges and difficulties. The salt represents the problems we face. When we focus on them in isolation, they seem overwhelming, just like the salt in the glass of water. It's all we can taste, it's all we can think about, and it becomes unbearable. But what happens when we put those same problems into perspective, when we view them as a tiny part of a much larger whole? They become like the grain of salt in the river, diluted by the vastness of the water. The problems haven't disappeared, but they no longer dominate our taste or our thoughts. They've become a small part of a much larger, richer experience. This is the beauty of the parable of the salt crystal. It nudges us to step back and look at the bigger picture. It reminds us that our troubles, no matter how big they may seem in the moment, are but a tiny speck in the grand scheme of things. It encourages us to broaden our perspective and approach life with a sense of proportion. In the grand tapestry of life, each challenge, each difficulty, is just a single thread. It's when we step back and view the tapestry as a whole that we can truly appreciate its complexity and beauty. Like the grain of salt in the river, our troubles may seem insignificant when viewed in the grand scheme of things. So the next time you're faced with a challenge, remember the parable of the salt crystal. It might just change your perspective. How does the parable of the salt crystal apply to our daily lives? This is a question that invites us to delve deeper into the wisdom embedded in this simple, yet profound Buddhist parable. Imagine you're facing a problem that seems insurmountable. Perhaps it's a difficult relationship, a challenging work situation, or a personal struggle that feels like a burden. In the context of the parable, this problem could be seen as the salt crystal. When you're focused exclusively on the problem, it can seem massive, overpowering, and impossible to resolve, just like a salt crystal might taste overwhelmingly salty if consumed on its own. But what happens when we step back and view the problem from a broader perspective? Much like the salt crystal dissolving in a river, the problem doesn't disappear, but it becomes a smaller part of the whole. The river, representing our lives, is vast and contains so much more than just the salt or the problem. It's filled with experiences, relationships, dreams, and possibilities. When we view our problem in the context of our larger life, it can seem less daunting, less overwhelming. The beauty of the parable of the salt crystal lies in its practical application. It reminds us to shift our focus from the problem itself to the bigger picture. It encourages us to remember that our life is more than just the challenges we face. It's about the relationships we build, the experiences we have, and the growth we undergo. The parable invites us to adjust our lens, to change our perspective. It encourages us to remember that while problems are a part of life, they don't define our existence. We are not the salt, we are the river. We are vast, capable, and resilient. The wisdom of the parable is not about denying the existence of problems, but about changing how we perceive them. It's about recognizing that problems, like salt crystals, are a part of the river of life, but they are not the entirety of it. By expanding our perspective, we can navigate life's challenges more effectively. So let's keep our heads above the water, continue to flow like the river, and remember, we are more than the salt in our lives. We are the river, vast and powerful. How does the parable of the salt crystal fit into Buddhist teachings? The parable of the salt crystal, a simple yet profound story, holds a significant place within the realm of Buddhism. It aligns seamlessly with the core Buddhist teachings about mindfulness, acceptance, and the crucial role of perspective. Delving deeper, the parable is a beautiful embodiment of mindfulness, a central tenet of Buddhism. It teaches us to be fully present in every moment, to truly taste the flavors of life, whether salty or sweet. It reminds us that our experiences, like the taste of the salt in the river, are shaped not just by the events themselves, but also by our awareness and acceptance of them. In this story, the salt crystal represents the inevitable hardships that life presents. Acceptance, another crucial Buddhist teaching, is about acknowledging these hardships without judgment, just like the river accepts the salt. This acceptance does not mean we must enjoy or desire these hardships, but rather, we acknowledge them as part of our human experience. The parable also underscores the importance of perspective, a concept deeply rooted in Buddhism. The size of the river, compared to the salt crystal, demonstrates how the same hardship can feel vastly different depending on our mindset and context. If we expand our perspective, as the river does with its vastness, we can dilute the impact of life's challenges, making them more bearable. Moreover, this parable echoes the Buddhist belief in the impermanence of life. Just as the salt dissolves in the water, so too do our problems and joys ebb and flow. By accepting this truth, we can navigate life with grace and resilience, neither clinging to pleasure nor recoiling from pain. In essence, the parable of the salt crystal is a metaphorical guide to a more balanced and peaceful life. It encourages us to practice mindful acceptance and broad perspective, helping us to navigate the ever-changing currents of existence with grace and serenity. In Buddhism, understanding and embracing the parable of the salt crystal can lead to a more balanced and peaceful life. So what can we take away from the parable of the salt crystal? In our exploration today, we've delved into the depths of this profound Buddhist teaching, unearthing wisdom that can truly transform our perspective on life. The parable of the salt crystal is more than just a story. It's a guide, a compass, steering us towards a broader, more compassionate understanding of our existence. At the heart of the parable, we find a simple yet powerful truth. Context matters. Just as a grain of salt can drastically change the taste of a cup of water but barely affect a vast river, so too can our troubles seem overwhelming when confined to a narrow perspective. When we expand our view, stepping back to see the bigger picture, our problems often become less daunting, more manageable. This teaching encourages us not to diminish or dismiss our difficulties, but to situate them within the grand tapestry of our lives. Every challenge, every hardship we encounter is but a single thread in this intricate weave. Recognizing this can help us navigate life's storms with greater equanimity and resilience. Moreover, the parable of the salt crystal illuminates a central tenet of Buddhism, the interconnectedness of all things. We are not isolated beings battling our troubles alone. We are part of a vast, flowing river of existence, interconnected with all beings and all experiences. our joys and sorrows, our triumphs and struggles, are shared and reflected in the ebb and flow of this universal current. In embracing this wider perspective, we cultivate a more compassionate, understanding heart. We learn to navigate life's challenges with grace, recognizing that our troubles, like a grain of salt in a river, are often smaller than they seem when viewed in the grand context of life. Remember, just like a tiny grain of salt in a vast river, our troubles are often smaller than they seem when viewed in the grand context of life. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey.